Parents in Ukraine always dreamt for their children to be educated and independent, loyal to their family and their country. This tradition of the upbringing of the young generation has been around since the times of Kievan Rus. For example, there was also such a historical landmark as Instruction for My Children by Volodymyr Monomach, or Teaching the Children by the monk Xenophont. Also, there were excerpts from chronicles and letters, which described the folk traditions of family upbringing and the relationship between parents and children. These traditions of upbringing and education were improved for many centuries and built into a single domestic system by outstanding Ukrainian teachers and educators. Pedagogy and national education of Ukraine in its formation have passed more than 1 century, and each stage of their development gave rise to outstanding personalities who were dedicated and devoted their lives to this noble cause.
Українська педагогіка, я би її назвав царицею.
I would call Ukrainian pedagogy a queen of pedagogical sciences in the world, among 9 of the most prominent educators in the world, like Komensky, Pestalozzi, and others. 4 of them are Ukrainians: Pirahov, Ushinsky, Makarenko, and Suhomlinsky. In fact, all pedagogical education, which is typically diverse in different countries, is based on the ideas that were developed mainly by Ukrainian educators.
Звичайно, вона має свої різновідності в різних країнах світу, але вона побудована.
So it can be said that Ukrainian pedagogy went down a very long path, and over the years many unique texts and methods were generated and developed.
Роками вона нагромаджувала тексти, нагромаджувала підходи.
Ukrainian pedagogical science is based on national traditions and experience accumulated and practiced in educational institutions. In the 14th to 17th centuries, these were brotherhood schools, which functioned in Lviv, Lutsk, and Kiev. Then there were collegiums. The Kiev-Mohyla Collegium, founded in 1632, became the center of education of that era, and since 1701 it was transformed into the Kiev Academy. It is the oldest institution of higher education in Eastern Europe. For comparison, we note that the Moscow Imperial University, which was the first university in Russia, was opened only in 1755. This system of upbringing in Cossack era became the peak in the development of Ukrainian national pedagogy. It demanded from the younger generation physical training, and courage in the fight against foreign enslavement, respect for national and universal values, respect for the elders, aspirations for mercy, and helping other people in need of such support. In the 18th century, the prominent Ukrainian philosopher, poet, and theologian Grigory Skovoroda played a very important role in the development of national pedagogy.
Він належав до того струменя, який ми умовно називаємо просвітництвом або світлом. Але просвітники...
He belonged to what we conventionally call the Enlightenment movement. But the Enlighteners were only targeting the mind, while he was also oriented on the heart for people. Many of us stumble upon it. When he said we should look for the heart in any undertaking, he had in mind a purely biblical expression. The heart of the Bible is inside the people, their essence. Back then, people thought that a person thinks with their hearts and not their minds. And he truly appealed to the emotional balance of a person.
Тоді думали, що людина мислить серцем, а не головою. Але тим не менш, в нього справді дійсно апеляція до чуттєвої рівноваги людини.
Він бачив, що у людині оці задачі...
He saw that a person could make earnings through hard labor, but he described this kind of work using the term relative work. This is something that is more consistent with the character of a person that should feel their calling in the process of education and upbringing, and what kind of work they will do with passion and the desire to do a good job.
До чого в неї поклик, яку працю.
This is not a simple situation. Therefore, Skovoroda is the founder of this idea of natural conformity of human upbringing, in the center of which is the notion of relative work.
Виховання людини, в центрі якої стоїть сродна праця.
In the 19th century, despite the unfavorable circumstances of Tsarist oppression, there was a noticeable revival in Ukrainian science, culture, literature, and education.
Якщо вже ближче підійти до наших таких часів, хоча б там 19 століття, 20, 21, то відтінюю тут я роль.
If we come closer to our time, at least in the 19th and 20th centuries, I emphasize the role of Drahomanov and Pirogov here. At that time, especially after serfdom, people wanted to study. Ukrainians have always been such an educational centrist nation. Our parents, our grandfathers and great-grandfathers have always tried to give their children a good education. And now, thanks to Drahomanov and others, before his time, Saturday and Sunday schools were established. The children of the poorest class of the population studied in these schools. At that time, Pirogov was a curator of the Kyiv school district who promoted this positive campaign.
І він заохочував цю справу.
Михайлу Петровичу Драгоманову належить думка про визначальну роль учителя у суспільстві. Зокрема, він підкреслював, що
Mikhailo Drahomanov formulated the idea of defining the role of a teacher in society. In particular, he stressed that the teacher, as a bearer of a part of the nation's soul, can oppose any attempts by any government to introduce anti-democratic, inhumane laws, and insisted on the high status of a teacher, on providing conditions for their work and the selection of highly qualified personnel.
на забезпеченні умов для його праці, на відборі кваліфікованих за покликанням кадрів.
In 1834, the first educational institution within the framework of St. Volodymyr's University in Kyiv was established in Ukraine.
Там були перший філософський факультет.
There was a philosophy faculty and the Pedagogical Institute was created within its structure. As it was written in the charter in Russian, to prepare specialists to work in the rank of a teacher, there were 25 students enrolled. They were in such a special position. They were to be lectured by the best teachers of the time.
Читати найкращі педагоги того часу.
The author on theory and history of pedagogy in elementary school books, Konstantin Ushinsky, is one of these prominent Ukrainian educators. The foundation of his works is psychological pedagogy and philosophical work in 3 volumes of the work titled The Human Being as a Subject of Education.
Константин Дмитрович Ушинський, педагог світового рівня.
Konstantin Ushinsky is a world-class teacher. He's familiar with European systems of education and upbringing. He made a unique contribution to the theory and pedagogical practice on Copernicus. He proposed such an extremely important idea, which now confirms that the native language is the most important in education and upbringing.
Про те, що чільне місце у навчанні і вихованні належить рідній мові. І говорив про те, що
He added that children who lose the opportunity to study in their native language will quickly lose the opportunity for their personal development. On the other hand, he said that it also affects the general development of the nation, which will no longer be able to properly develop its history and its culture.
поступі нації, яка вже не може належним чином розвивати свою історію, свою культуру.
According to UNESCO's position, the world-famous Ukrainian educator, writer and educator Anton Makarenko is considered to be the person who determined pedagogical thinking of the 20th century. He has gained experience in pedagogical practice, which has no equals in the mass re-education of children who broke the law.
Це видатний педагог.
He was an outstanding teacher. He was a teacher of his time, and he was looking for answers to questions that were needed at that time. But he developed a system that is very important today. I went to Rome to sign an agreement with the first Roman university, La Sapienza. We were received at different faculties. Then they say, let's go to the Center of Ukrainian Studies and Makarenko. They have a Makarenko faculty. And I asked provocatively, why do you need this totalitarian teacher?
Антон Семенович А я говорю, так, знаєте, провокаційно кажу, а на що вам цей тоталітарний?
And they said, we have an enclave in the center of Rome, where the settled people are non-conforming. We do not know what to do with them. And when we apply Makarenko's philosophy and pedagogy, it works. And that is why they study Makarenko. They turn to Makarenko. He applied such effective and interesting methods that were based on work, trust and faith in a person. We then realized that these are the most important factors.
І довіра до людини. Віра в людини – це найголовніше.
Not only Anton Makarenko's work, but also that of Vasyl Sukhomlinsky, an outstanding teacher, brought well-deserved fame and worldwide recognition to Ukrainian pedagogical science and practice in the 20th century. Working as a director of the Pavlishska Secondary School in the Kirovohrad Oblast, he studied from an innovative position the problems of theory and methods of family and school upbringing of children, comprehensive development of the student's personality and problems with pedagogical skills. In practice, he consistently introduced humanist principles of education and upbringing into his educational activities. All his practical experience was described in the multi-volume book, I Give My Heart to Children.
Ми дивимося на українську цю педагогіку, і ми бачимо, розкажімо, від сковороди. Далі
We look at Ukrainian pedagogy, and what do we see? Let's say from Skovoroda and other philosophers who developed the philosophy of cardiocentrism. Cardio is the heart, the affectionate attitude to people. This is absolutely peculiar for Ukrainians. In this vein, one can name such poets and writers as Lesya Ukrainka, Ivan Franko, and Taras Shevchenko. This is one line. Such a cardiocentric philosophy was embodied in pedagogical practice. And Sukhomlinsky completed this philosophy saying, I give my heart to children. This is the specificity of the mentality of the Ukrainians manifested in pedagogical education, which is being implemented. This is about sincerity, decency, the connection with family philosophy, the attitude of parents to their children and children to parents. And he formulated this historical continuity as I give all my heart to children.
ставлення батьків до дітей, а дітей до батьків. І ця тяглість історично сформував серце, віддаю дітям.
Ті ідеї, які він закладав, скажімо, у своїх публікаціях, вони знаходили реалізацію у думках, ділах.
The ideas he put in his publications were realized in the works and thoughts of young teachers. I was quite deeply impressed by I Give All My Heart to Children. I would say that to some extent, there were thoughts that we perceived at 100% and wanted to apply them to children. Everyone tried to implement these ideas in their practical work. To some extent, every teacher, every director wanted this style to fit into their pedagogical laboratory or pedagogical workshop in order that it would be effective and turn out this way. And I would like to say that this concept was not hypocritical at all.
Це, скажімо, щоб так працювали. І я хотів сказати про те, що дійсно це було не фальшиве.
The new Ukrainian school project, which was implemented in the country since 2017, is a continuation of the development of pedagogical practice. The main task of the project is to create a school that will be a pleasant place to study and that will give students not only knowledge but also the ability to apply them in life. It sets off this continuity in the formation of teacher education, which began to take shape as a revival of the national tradition after the proclamation of independence of Ukraine. Here, the state program Ukraine of the 21st century is of great importance. Here, the national doctrine of the development in the sphere of education is of great importance. Integration into the European Union and compliance with EU standards is a very important task for Ukrainian pedagogy and education. The school has to form values, because values are the basis, good, justice, love, respect, on which the human personality is formed. I, with my friends from the European community, have studied this topic intensely and in great detail to understand all the nuances. As long as migration processes continue, many people travel and move to work from country to country. The European Union is being formed and so on. Many people want to join this community with disparate values, but they should at least correlate with each other. That is democracy, human rights, tolerance, and justice. And these values should only be formed in the pan-European community.
І вони повинні формуватися у загальноєвропейському просторі.
Ukrainian educators, along with scholars from European countries, formulated the document Pedagogical Constitution of Europe that was adopted several years ago in Frankfurt am Main. It encourages people to be creative as an educator on the basis of common European values. The main objective is so that educators of all European countries could understand each other and educate children accordingly.